my homework and watching some of your latest videos because I remember vividly your earliest videos. And so now I flipped it on and was like, oh, they're 5,000. And so I flipped it on, was like, oh, there's been this growth. And it's just one of those things that there's no frills. So basically what's going to happen now, we're live. So welcome to it, everybody. But the thing is that it will be cut into a podcast. And so I'm just going to mute this. Good. And I don't know why this didn't pop out again. And then we get quiet for a second. I say, hey, welcome to the Convergence, because there's something I do in post for podcasts, and that's the magic. So everybody watching gets to know all the magic.
That's how the magic is made, everyone.
That's about as much magic as I'm doing right now. So ultimately, that's what it is. So here we go.
And I want to say hello to Alan and Nicole, who I see in the chat.
Heck yeah. Alan, Nicole, Crazy Bear is on. Oh, he's on YouTube. He's one of my Twitch followers. One of my gaming guys.
Kitty Bear, I believe.
Kitty Bear, Dutch.
Crazy Dutch. I like
it. Yes. So yes, welcome to the Convergence. Here I am tonight. I'm 97 Bravo. It is Monday. This is episode 15, and I am with Michelle from Force of Light Entertainment. How you doing this evening, Michelle?
I'm doing good. Glad to be on. Thank you for having me.
Yes.
And now I know how you make the magic of your podcast.
Yes, and it's everybody knows, and the magic is out there. It's what are you gonna do? It's good times. Like we were just talking about it just a little bit. The premise behind this and what I like to do. I'd like to find out more about the minds behind the magic. We see things, we see the videos, we see the live chats and those kinds of things, but there's the rationale behind it that may have been glossed over as stars started to rise type thing. And so it's nice to sort of get back and find out with entertainers like yourself, content creators, where that spark sort of happens. So why don't you, for people who are watching or will come back and listen to the podcast, people who may not know what you guys are about, and say hello to Natalie for us.
Yes, I will.
let us know what you're about and how you got started.
Yeah, well, for those of you who don't know, I'm Michelle. I'm one half of Force of Light Entertainment. My co-host is my sister, Natalie the Red, as she goes by. But yeah, we started, let's see. So we started as a podcast, actually, like exclusively a podcast. And we started, let's see, it was I believe, February of 2020. And we started just to be just to discuss movies, like podcast form, review, discussion of movies. Because I've always been a massive movie fan. Love movies. Have always loved Star Wars was always my favorite franchise growing up. Yes. And I'd watched YouTube for a couple years. Really, I started to watch entertainment YouTube, I would say around the time, or actually a few months before The Last Jedi came out. And I would watch the Star Wars channels and see what they were having to say about this upcoming movie. And then, of course, we know that movie came out, and well, whether you liked it or not, it definitely sparked a lot of discussion. And I just kind of, after watching for, I guess, 2 years at that point, I just was, one day, I actually started because I'm a minister, and I was going to start a Christian podcast. And I came up with Force of Light. And it wasn't much longer after that I started thinking, I would enjoy talking about movies and entertainment too. And that's when I came up with Force of Light Entertainment, and I asked my sister. And so that's how we started, was just reviewing movies, having almost hour-long movie discussions or longer formatted podcast style reviews. And we did that. Let's see, again, we started in February 2020. I think we made our first YouTube version of that. And again, it was just a podcast. We just like this. We just uploaded our podcast. And we did that at the end of June in 2020. And let's see. And two, let's go back to that. So we start a movie review podcast in February 2020. A few weeks later, we know what happens. Everything
Right.
gets turned upside down.
Right.
Every movie gets postponed.
Right.
And we had to get creative of then just going back and discussing movies we wanted to talk about that we liked, or we mostly picked things we liked at that point. Since we were picking old movies, it might as well, I guess. And so we kind of just had to kind of wing it really for most of 2020 at that point, because there was nothing new until the
Was
very
it
end of 2020.
this one?
Yes. Yeah, that was one of our, that we had, there we go. We got Adam and Josh from a Certain Point of View podcast. Look,
Yeah.
we don't know what we're doing. We're so confused. Look at us. I
It
mean,
was what's funny is the I was going through because it is that, you know, when you see the before and after, or the differences in everybody's everything is fantastic. We should all have these clips every so often. We should just smuggle away and then bring them out for like one big reel, because there's what's funny is it's not funny. I relate to it because, you know, what are we doing? You know, no one, you just kind of do it and go, okay, that didn't work. But yeah, you're you're facing the camera and you're looking at the script as you're reading it. It's just little things like that, and I was teasing the guys yesterday on the escape pod, the same thing. It we laugh because it is funny. You know, it is when we look back, and we look back at those times when we were first starting and why we started. And as we're moving forward, and times do change, and unfortunately there are exterior factors in this particular time frame. You and them, not to bring them into your conversation, but coincidentally you're both sort of COVID children as
yeah.
entities. That your properties, your content came out of it, sort of hit in the COVID area. And so it's not, as you know, probably not exactly what you thought you wanted to be doing, or those sorts of things, you know, veer or whatever. But besides the movies, because you go back and you know, you can check out the YouTube channel if you're listening on the podcast, or watching there. It's basically what it is. It's the reviews were what I found so interesting early on, and we talked extensively during WandaVision, was you still felt like you were talking with somebody who had knowledge but was also learning with their audience. And so I think that's what I pulled out of it. And that's what, you know, the enjoyment is that there's a lot of stuff that's out there that we can get distracted with. Now, with your entertainment and things, as you grew from just movie reviews, uh, you guys are over what, 200 videos now, and
Yes.
well over 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. How that's all translated into the podcast, are your weekly updates and those kinds of things?
So let's keep going with our story. So
Okay.
we first
All
went
right.
on with Scarif, the Scuttlebutt podcast, and that's the
Oh,
first time we went on their channel for YouTube. And for whatever reason, you know, it's funny, I started a podcast because, again, I watch YouTube. I never listened to podcasts, but for
mhm,
some reason in my mind, I guess because the camera's not there, I thought, well, that's easier. That's an easier
mhm,
route to go. And but saying that to say, we weren't too long into it that I was like, we should probably get on YouTube. And it was after we went on with Ro and Brad that it was like, yeah, we definitely need to do this. And so it kind of slowly has come to the point where now we're really more just a YouTube channel where I occasionally upload like one of our movie reviews on the podcast,
I
or
see.
I'll upload our live stream on a Wednesday night if I think it was a particularly entertaining one. That's kind of what it's become, where we're much more really now just a YouTube channel that again occasionally uploads a podcast, because it kind of shifted that way really at the beginning of 2021. Uh,
Oh, okay.
let's see. At the very beginning of 2021, we hit 300 subscribers, and it just kind of began to grow from there.
Mhm.
And that's when we began to really kind of be like, yeah, this is what we want. We kind of figured out because it's like you said, you don't know what you're doing when you start. I had
Right.
never even really listened to podcasts, and I started a podcast. Then you get on YouTube and you don't have a clue what you're doing. You look back at
Mhm.
those old videos and you just laugh because you're like, gosh, that's bad. Um, and I'm sure if we keep doing this for another 5 years or however long, you're going to look back to now, and I'm going to be like, man, we've come a long way since then. Like it really
Well,
is. Like you just learn as you go along in this.
well, just even in the 2 years that you guys have been doing it, so much has changed, and your directions and sort of getting away from the podcast and just doing the YouTube stuff. The entity or the it sort of took the entire thing just took off and became it's a life of its own. You sort of have hopes and dreams for your kids, whatever have you, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, we'll do with that. Do you feel like you had things that you wanted to do that you wish you guys were doing now? Do you have any of that?
Do you know the only in fact, it's funny where Natalie and I were actually discussing our YouTube channel today. And like we were saying how I've kind of been a little lazy with YouTube about the last 3 weeks, just kind of personal things. Our grandfather had been in the hospital and just kind of a lot going on. And
Right.
we haven't really done as much. And there's really not been that much I felt like to cover in general. Not like a lot of interesting news or anything. But we were talking today how like we're kind of doing what I enjoy doing. Like what I enjoy doing is I still love movie reviews. And of course now, thank God, we have new content to review
Yes.
to where now it when we first started, I was so afraid of like being negative in any way. And I think you see the evolving of that, like our Dune review. I didn't like Dune. I let that be known. It's become a comedic thing in our live streams. People bring up Dune. And I found the way of like, and still, if you watch our channel, it's like even when we don't like something, we're usually very lighthearted and comedic in our, just kind of silly in our approach to expressing what we didn't like.
Right.
Um, but it is fun to be able to sometimes I love movies, sometimes I'm so, sometimes I can't
Yeah.
stand it. But I really do enjoy reviewing movies or TV. And then also what we've really taken off and gone into, which I really enjoy doing, are the reactions, either trailer
Mm.
reactions or movie reactions, watching a whole movie, recording yourself doing it, and just kind of talking over it throughout that. And people seem to really like that, and which makes me happy because I enjoy doing that. And Natalie does too. Really enjoys doing that. The next this weekend, we're actually going to record ourselves watching. We've never watched Top Gun, so we're going to record ourselves watching Top Gun.
Well, okay, just on that real quick, I will say in Top Gun's defense, it was 1986. All right,
Okay, I'm going to keep that in
that's all.
mind.
Because if I hear "Take My Breath Away" one more time, do this for me. When you guys watch it, just it's not a thing. Just listen for that song. If it doesn't play 1,000 times, then I'll eat my own hand. Listen for it. I'm telling you, the music, it's like every time you would insert music, they're like, "Oh, I know. Take My Breath Away." And then it's the music is so when you watch it, not to take away from the movie because it is what it is, and it is for its at its time, it was good entertainment. Does it hold up? There's some aspects to it, but that music. So yes, just listen for that. Yeah, I was surprised. I got it recently. It was like $5 or whatever it was, and I rewatched it. My wife was in the kitchen going, "Really again?" so
I have a
so yeah.
feeling we're going to have a fun time watching
Yeah.
this for the first time. There will be plenty of room for fun comments throughout,
Oh, I'm
but
sure. Yeah,
I'll
there's
definitely be listening for that. Uh, But yeah, we do that. And then let's see. Yeah, movie reviews, reactions. We do our live stream once a week where we just kind of discuss whatever current things are going on in the world of entertainment. We
Mhm.
usually pick 3 stories that we want to talk about. And we usually begin by just talking about whatever we want to talk about, whether that's something in the chat or something and uh, just going on in society. We'll discuss whatever. And then we also occasionally say when something as crazy as the Will Smith situation happens, we'll do a video discussing that. But for the most part, we don't really like getting into drama, so to say. That's just not kind of our bag. In the words of Austin
Right.
Powers, that's not our bag, baby. Like it just we don't prefer to get into that. We do. I do enjoy occasionally if there's something worth speaking about kind of commentary speaking into society, the way entertainment is trying to speak into society and kind of
Right.
giving our 2 cents on what we think about that. But those videos are more, there's not near as many as of those as the other.
Do you
But yeah,
find
that
that well, on that, do you find that do you find yourself self-censoring in this environment? I know that there are some creators who do it, they consciously say, "Yep, I'm cutting that." But when you do approach it, do you or Natalie, do I mean, there is an aspect of that, but how much of that do you find yourself doing, if any?
for the most part, like I really, for the most part, okay, like there's certain words, obviously, you have to, you can't say, you've got to come up with a, like COVID, coof. I mean, you can say COVID now, but like for a while
Right.
you had to say coof. So you have to censor yourself in those ways, knowing the lingo you're allowed to say or not say. Um,
So,
but
like,
outside,
trigger words for algorithms and things like that?
yes. So
Okay.
you always have to be aware of that. But outside of that, I would say you censor yourself a little bit always. Like even on those videos, because you're very careful to not, it's like you want to speak, you want to express yourself and have your view, but you
Right.
also want to be very careful. We genuinely don't want to offend people like that. We're not trying to offend people. And I'm not
Right.
talking about people that would just not have that would just have a different point of view and be upset with us.
Or
But we.
perpetually offended anyways.
Yes,
Right.
those people, it is what it is,
Mhm.
whatever. But so we do. We're I guess I would say we're conscious in how we address those things. I know an issue too. Like say even like the Disney thing that just came up, and them wanting to have X amount of representation with
Right.
the LB. I get lost in all the different letters now. Community.
Right.
Because literally, I say that not to make fun. Literally, they've added letters, and I forget the letters. But addressing things like that, like we have gay people that watch our channel, and we're happy to we'd love for gay people to watch our channel. It's not anything like that. But like, say something like this, like, is it statistically accurate to have 50% of your characters be gay? Well, no, it's not. Like that's just
Right.
not that's not reflective of society.
No, but what is it? The Academy had actually placed that on their submission. So now you can't go up for some of the biggest awards unless your movie had certain percentages of X, Y, or Z. And so
Yes,
that's the other conundrum that we've sort of painted ourselves into a corner about is percentages and
yes,
representation that way, and accurate representation. Well, what does that mean? Well, it means different things to different people, obviously for a variety of different reasons. But it is funny how there is just usually like a one-way conversation.
yes,
And if you veer too much out of the stream, how the group reacts. Have you had any sort of backlash based off of a video that, I mean, significant sort of, because we've known people who have had significant backlashes based off of an opinion, or we've either known them or we've heard about them on Twitter or those kinds of things. But I mean, have you guys been affected by that, by an opinion that you've had that just did not sit well with someone or a group?
We really haven't, and fortunately, and what I was saying in that is, and even what I just expressed to you, so it's like we don't really censor ourselves, but I would be careful in how it's worded, of
Right.
truly trying to explain, of not trying to. I think that's where it's not necessarily censoring. You're very careful in how you explain it because
Right.
you don't want like a group just to feel like, oh, hey, you're talking about us. And it's like, no, 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 we're fine with you, but this is not reflective of society.
Right.
Just trying to really explain yourself. And I find people aren't upset when you really explain yourself. I mean, maybe we've upset some people. I don't know. We are
Okay.
very conscious about that, not trying to, again, trying to fully articulate your thoughts to where people, if people are upset, they were just upset because they disagree, not
Right.
because of how you relayed the information.
And a lot
Uh,
of people don't, it's very hard to hear opposing views. For
yes.
some reason they've grown up in a society, and I don't know where this society is, but they grew up in a society where everyone agreed on everything. And
Yeah.
I've never been there. I don't know what language they speak, but for some reason I'm supposed to, in certain circumstances, depending on what I'm doing, I'm supposed to adhere to that kind of thing.
Well,
And it does muddy the water. And I was just curious if there had been, because we've known either celebrities or whatever, or just people who are doing similar things to what we're doing, is they said something and people were like, "Arr."
yes.
So
Well, and fortunately, we've not had that happen. I would say what's funny is I think the most angry sometimes our comment section gets is on movie reviews. Like that's what makes
I heard that
people.
one. Yeah. Or the not the reviews, the trailer reactions. You guys were
Yeah,
clowning about that during your 5K episode.
yeah, yeah. Sometimes, like I've gotten a couple times actually. Well, why do you have thoughts on something you've not seen? Why would you watch it if you don't like it? And it's like, it's a trailer reaction. I didn't know I didn't like the trailer until I watched the trailer.
It, it's like sometimes you just want to scream out, "I'm sorry. Are you new here? This is the thing, dude. This is the thing we're doing. Everybody gets it but you, bro. Why are you that's some of the stuff that the out of the left field stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like pineapple. Why do you have a problem with apples? What? It's that mentality of yeah, it and yeah, I've experienced it. There are ways, like on YouTube, if they're egregious, you could just like disappear them. I
Yeah.
tend to try to leave everything, but those egregious sort of, this doesn't do anybody in the world any good, this comment, that kind of thing, because
Yes.
it was completely unconstructive and just raw, and who needs that? But no, it's interesting, especially with the touchy subjects that we have all experienced in the last 2+ years, going into that summer with
Mhm.
the riots and those kinds of things, and people going out to express not only about COVID at this point early on, but also perceived injustices and those kinds of things. So as we're moving in to sort of the election, and as I've noticed anyways, the sort of it's not even sort of that it there is a personality much like myself, that there is a view of certain topics that sound common sense.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
something comes across and you're like, what they do in Florida? Okay, I got it. Move on. What they do over here? That kind of thing. Like, there are certain things that just go, uh-huh, and we move on. But as well as I do, that Hollywood isn't like that. And I think overall, because we're starting to get in, as far as your guys' story is concerned, we're starting to get into the fun with Pedro and Gina,
Yeah.
and that kind of thing. 2020 was an extremely fun year for a variety of reasons, and that dichotomy, of course, is one of those things that, as far as fandom goes, sort of splits the fandom. you're pro Pedro, you're pro Gina, but there's no one in between. And you know as well as I do that there, there's room for all of that. But
Yes.
with ha- have you noticed any sort of change with how that how the idea of the separation between it, well, let's just not to put too fine a point on it, but is there anybody else out there right now who is active in Hollywood or active, I mean, not Elon Musk, but I mean like active in Hollywood, their job could be on the line type thing, who basically comes out and says what she says, or takes the tone that she does, or takes the stance that she does, those kinds of things openly or whatever. Nick Cersei, of course, on Twitter. I mean, if you follow him, he does. But I mean, he's resigned
Yeah.
himself to the Hollywood he knows he's open to. um Same thing with James Wood. So
Yes.
you have these entities, but as far as throughout Hollywood, do you think that even with the whole Gina incident, do you think that anybody learned anything in Hollywood? Lucasfilm in particular?
Does it seem to? And then are you talking as far as actors or the people behind the scenes? Like,
Well, I mean,
to
it
me, I think
appears that I
the Gina thing kinda made people, like, shut up all the more. Like, it's like, oh, it was kinda like a I don't know, I feel like kind of a she was used almost like as a, "This is what happens if you step out of line."
yeah,
Um,
and yeah, I 100% totally agree. I think it was a shot across the bow, and I don't think, and see, this is the thing that in that particular instance that drove wedges between certain fandoms and things that were even supportive of Gina was the crux of it all. And I don't think it had much to do with her. It had some to do with her based off of what was happening in between season 1 and season 2 for, 2020, and the fans were ramping up and she was interacting, and there was this, as far as her star was concerned. And uh but you also had this other side that she was also putting out into public and those kinds of things. And then as you move forward, have you found that those kinds of stances where it appears Hollywood has gone one direction, but you and your sister perhaps, or maybe separately, you take the Gina route, or you view something completely different. You view what Pedro was doing was wrong and not as funny as perhaps his followers, but when you point at what Gina had done with far less vitriol, I mean, like zero vitriol whatsoever, and she's just disappeared. Do you think that that has repercussions for creators who express opinions like that, one way or the other, openly?
I mean, I think it does, again, if you're talking Hollywood, absolutely.
I mean,
But if
and
you're if
us
okay, if
in
you're talking
particular,
YouTube,
right?
I think things are so polarized that it's like people actually enjoy it. Like, I
Mm,
mean, that's kind of when we like came out and gave our thoughts on Gina is when our channel began to grow because people are looking, I mean, we people are looking for a different opinion sometimes, for the
right.
different side of the argument because we
Hmm.
have the one side coming out of Hollywood, it's the only side they allow.
Hmm.
And even at that time, just the mainstream in general, it was only really one way of thinking. So people
Even
are
how they reported it, even how the media
yes,
reported it was meh. You could tell when you were reading it, there was this disgust.
yes,
Even with Disney,
absolutely.
or was it Lucasfilms? Lucasfilm responded, "Some of she's no longer with us," or whatever it was. Even that sounded like they were disgusted by what she did.
Oh man, what word did they use? It was
Um,
like it was such a harsh word that they used
right,
to describe her. It was brutal.
right. And she showed she was making the comparison between having neighbors turn each other in for being Jewish, basically
Yes.
before the Holocaust, as the Holocaust was ramping up, but before World War II, and the treatment of people who were going, we're different and we have different thoughts. Correlating those two thoughts in and of themselves in a vacuum, I honestly didn't understand what the problem was.
Yeah,
People
I
have
I really didn't either.
people have used that meme before. I mean, I joked early on as Gina was kind of, obviously she's been around for a while, but in 2020 when her star was rising in between the two seasons, mainly because of the memes she was posting, and very positive and uplifting, and those sorts of things, which of course is not what Pedro was doing. So you have
Yeah.
this I mean, anyone who has been on Instagram for a second, and I mean, just go to I have no idea what the now I don't follow so much like daily anymore or anything like that. So it's not something that's necessarily on my radar, but I remember like literally as things were falling apart towards the end of 2020, like there was this sort of tension and stuff that wasn't being discussed. And of course, going into 2021 when the dam broke and she was let go and everything just kind of, that kind of thing. But it was that tension that
Mhm.
the absurdity behind, if you look at the history of everything she's done and you look at the history of everything Pedro has said on Instagram or social media in general, and you combine the two, and if you were to just look at that without having any context, just the bad ones, the bad tweets or whatever have you, it's a no-brainer. You talk too heavily, as Gina said that she was talked to Pedro instead of Gina. You pull Gina aside and be like, what do you mean by this? Because it's causing an issue. Was because it was Beep Bop Boop originally that brought her on the radar. Remember that shit?
Yes.
So so it's like as the water is getting deeper with certain stars and certain entities that we've sort of gravitated towards, like a Gina or a Pedro in that instance. Do you think that the industry is, as you're moving through that and watching it closer, I would assume the how do you think Hollywood, what is your impression of Hollywood as someone who's gotten sort of deeper into watching it closer, not a normie or someone, somebody like that. You're sort of you're moving towards finding out information to then, give your take on things. Do you find that audiences want more negativity as you try to be positive? Do you find resistance to sort of, I mean, just the sort of open-eyedness, like a Gina in that regard of viewing the world? Because it was my impression of her, and it's fine. It's my impression, but the naivete that came across as far as
Yes. Yeah.
politics and Hollywood and those sorts of things, it was like, girl, where have you been?
Yes.
For me, it was
Yes.
sort of
Yeah.
frustrating. Um, but Hollywood didn't take too kindly to that because she, much like anybody else who wasn't watching that sort of happen, like a lot of voices have been within the industry, she was kind of like, I don't understand what's going on right now.
Yeah.
And do you think that in that regard, look in hindsight, do you think that us as fans in that environment, do you think that do you think her actual situation was conveyed? And do you think that people cared when she sat down with Ben and did that whole thing? Yeah, you know what I mean? When it
Well,
first came out.
the people that agreed with her, I think do care. The people who'd made up their mind that she was a phobe and every other name you could call it did
Right,
not care.
right,
The people, it really was just, again, polarization of the split that was in our country is kind of how that went. Now, there are a decent amount of people, I'd say, in the middle that really didn't understand why Gina was fired. Like, that's kind
right,
of the general consensus I've gotten from people who are truly more down the middle and not super into politics. They usually leaned on Gina's side of like, what was the big deal about this?
right. And
It's, yeah, that's kind of what we've noticed in our communicating with people, and even just from the YouTube connections we made. That's kind of been the consensus with that. And as far as like Hollywood, I think again, I've loved movies my whole life. I don't go pay to watch a movie that I think I'm gonna not like. Like, like if I go to the
Right.
theater and spend my money, I want to be entertained. And I think, what people have been fussing about is we don't like when they want to cram ideology and like politics into movies.
Right.
Like people are just fed up with it uh because it's like it only ever goes one way. Like I mean, Hollywood, let's just be real. I mean, it's I again, I love to be entertained. I have a freaking entertainment channel. But I mean, Hollywood is it's kind of cult like. I mean,
Hmm.
truly, if you look up the definition of a cult, like that's what it is. Because there is no room, as we saw with Gina, there is no room for dissenting voices. And even someone like, it'll be interesting to see how her career goes, like Evangeline Lilly. Like, she
Oh,
came
right.
out with her thoughts over what's going on in Canada and over her position on the jab and that. And even that, like, I mean, she was condemned to a degree, not near as harshly as Gina, but
No.
it'll be interesting to see what work she gets out of that because people
Right.
were not happy with her over her just voicing, yet again, just voicing a different opinion.
Hmm.
And that's just so sad that that's kind of how it is. But people know that at this point, and I think that's why people are looking for alternative versions of entertainment.
Yeah, I think I do think that these sort of splashes in Hollywood and what kind of gets everybody's attention. I think that if you're doing anything in regards to entertainment similar to like what we're doing, or at least trying to, the propensity to go after the gory stuff, if it bleeds it leads, that sort of thing. And one of the in 2021, a lot of I had seen a lot of talk about, and it may have been back scenes. I'm not exactly sure. I'm not exactly remembering. But as far as um, how how people were starting to view Star Wars fandom as a whole, in particular, and then how that sort of bled over into MCU and Star Trek and sort of these big properties and things, and how there had become this rhythm of, I think I'm not going to like that.
Yeah.
But it it wasn't what I thought anyways, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there just was less to like. Like it wasn't entertainment. And so if it was politics, if it was their narratives, or if it was, whatever it was, their shopping list, whatever it was, they weren't selling it. The only thing they were selling was whatever message that they had. And it was like,
Yeah.
what the hell is the story?
Yeah.
You're a movie, be a story. And so when it became kind of a token thing, a trophy thing, like, okay, well, what's your gimmick? Well, our gimmick is these four people over here are blah 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 blah, that kind of thing. And it's like, that's not a story. That's a sidebar. That's a, oh really, I didn't know that. Because no one cares.
Yes.
As someone who goes to be entertained, it is that it's the lack of entertainment. But do you think that there is a cacophony of people, like, as far as voices that you listen to, is it just displeasure? I mean, are you hearing the good stuff? Do you gravitate towards, you know listening to a much more positive edge in 2022 versus what 2021 was?
Gene, again, I feel like entertainment 2022 has been kind of boring. I honestly have never I've not watched such, again, we've not even made tons of videos in the last couple weeks, but not we haven't made a lot at all, but it's like I've watched less this year because if like I don't just watch like a lot of drama videos that are kind of more negative for the most part. Like I
Mhm.
genuinely am for entertainment, like I want to watch a movie review. Like I may go watch
Mm,
someone who I think, who I kind of enjoy their movie reviews and see, oh, did they like this movie before I go see it? So I can only take so much negativity. Now, if it's something that's kind of humorous, like even I watched a few, say, of Drunk 3PO's videos on like the Disney Star cruise ship. I mean, that was
mm.
such a train wreck. You had to watch a few of them. I mean, I mean, that was huge, but he's not negative. It was more humorous.
Right.
Um, that's kind of the way, yeah, I kind of lean towards, and sometimes you agree with someone who's being negative because sometimes like you just don't like that thing. So you agree
Right.
with their thoughts on that. So I don't know if I lean one. I for the most part, I can only handle so much negativity, like in general. So that's kind of just me across the board.
Right.
But something you were saying earlier, kind of you when you were talking, example of a movie that I really liked that I feel like it was both entertaining, it had a story, and yet it had a message it was trying to convey, but that message wasn't overly political, and both sides of the aisle could appreciate the message, I feel like, was like
Hmm.
Joker. Like that used to be the way they kind of gave us like messages.
Commentary.
Yes,
Right.
commentary.
Right.
Like that was a
Hmm.
commentary on the downtrodden and people that are overlooked and neglected by society. And but yet it wasn't done in a politicized way. Like it was done in a way that was so palatable and you again, I feel like regardless of what side of the aisle you were on, you were captivated by that story and you felt compassion in those situations. That's kind of what Hollywood used to do, and I wish they would get back to that more because that's actually more powerful. Like
Right.
because you're captivating, no matter if they're a Democrat, Independent, or Republican, they're interested in this story because
Hmm.
it's not on a side. It's
It's
just
a
a
human
message.
story. Right.
Yes, it's a human story.
Right.
Exactly, and I feel like people would love more of that for the most part
I
because
think
I
they're
think that
craving it.
they are craving it or simply just good entertainment. That's just
Hmm.
fantasy or whatever
Hmm.
it is. If we're in a galaxy far, far away, we
Hmm.
don't want to hear about, they've not done this. I'm making up something. We don't want like BLM and Star Wars or whatever it is. That was just
Right.
an example. Again, they've not done that. I'm just saying.
Well,
Um,
it's a moment in time. You know, it's not a theme
yes,
like a what is it? The archetypal, hero story sort of thing. It's a moment in time. It is
exactly. We're like George Lucas. I mean, again, just a different day. People are like, well, Star Wars has always been political. Well, yeah, but like in a way that like again, it doesn't matter. It shouldn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. Like, are you
right.
for a tyrannical government that controls everything or not? Like that was the politics of Star Wars.
Right. It's political science. It's
Yes.
the political science aspect of it. It's not a politically driven narrative of we will tell you these things before the end of the movie.
Yes.
That's what it is that you will feel sympathy for these characters for these reasons. There's tons of characters out there that just write the stuff. I mean, the problem I think a lot of fans are having to speak on the negativity is and I don't view it as negativity. I view it as displeasure because
Yes.
it's not negativity in the sense that you're sort of gravitating towards just an anger feeling. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yes.
you're angry
Yes.
that wasn't what you thought it should have been versus I'm disappointed because I was expecting something else or I was expecting more or whatever it was. And people get disappointed and I've heard that too going into movies. Well, have no expectations. Look, dude, I don't know how humans work on your planet, but humans on my planet, we kind of have ooh, Harrison Ford's in it. It's probably going to be good. Or so and so's in it. Oh, that's probably, you know what I'm saying? Like I saw 4 of his things and I didn't care for it. Whatever it is, you're going into a movie, you're going into an entertainment, whatever, with expectations. Did you find that like the expectations you had for what perhaps you wanted to start doing, like when you find yourself in 2020 and things are starting to change and you're becoming more vocal, and then of course having more, like, you felt more empowered that
Mhm.
you could say something, that it wasn't just Michelle from Tennessee that no one knew. It was Michelle with two L's on Force of Light Entertainment. You know what I'm saying? It's that kind of thing. And oh, Michelle's talking. So, and that you have that because of the, quite frankly, the platform that you've created. And so when you do things like that, and I said that you do said that you try to take people into account. And I'm not saying you don't, it's just how I'm framing it. It seems almost like those sorts of ideas start behind the eight ball, like, automatically now.
Mhm.
Like, you follow who you like, there's this magical sort of box that everybody is sort of aware of, like, oh, you listen to who, boom, you're in that box. You talk to so and so, you're in that box. And pretty soon it's like we need a box for everybody. And I
Yeah.
think that, much like well, I talk with whomever will listen about it, but like Red 5, for example, and having those sorts, having all that flavor to that,
Mhm.
to that, jambalaya is basically
Yeah.
what it is. It's all these, it's sort of all these ingredients that probably shouldn't make sense that all of a sudden do make sense when someone posts something and there's this reverberation that occurs. Do you think that well, let me ask this, not do you think, are you seeing any more, do you see more positivity coming out of new products? I'm not talking Mobius or Morbius, whatever it is, but like a Halo, something that is separate from MCU, Star Wars. Do you see those sorts of entities? Do you see people giving those chances? More like they're less apt to look at it like an MCU, and they're like, "Oh my god, I already know the formula for those." But like
Mhm.
a Halo hits, or The Expanse, or 1884, or something like that, where it's like, "Deal with me," it kind of just plants down right in the middle, and you're like, do you think people are gravitating more towards that sort of entertainment, where they're, if they're coming to a YouTube or listening to a podcast, they're gravitating towards that idea of, away from needing to hear the harping, and more towards, yeah, I kind of like that show too, filling more time and more space with the positive than that era of negativity. Is the era of negativity over, do you think?
I don't think it's over. And again, I think you used such a good word because I feel like I didn't fully answer your question right. Because I think you're right. A lot of the way fans feel is not necessarily negative. It's disappointing. I'm not mad. I'm disappointed. you
Right.
know, that's kind of
Exactly.
what it is. It's like, say, even like we're definitely going to be reviewing every episode of Kenobi. And I genuinely so hope that it's fantastic.
It's got to
Like,
be. It's got
I
to be.
like, I love that character. I love Ewan McGregor as that character. I will genuinely be upset. Like, it will be genuine if I'm sitting here and giving it a bad review. Like, I don't want to do that. Like,
Right.
I will. I'm going to be honest if I don't like it, just as I was, as
Right.
people saw with the Book of Boba Fett. I mean, you can
Right.
see there's ones I really praise, the ones with Mando, and the others I was like, it wasn't for. I just didn't like it.
Hmm.
Um, so I think it is so many people are just like disappointed. And I think you made a good point. I think people are beginning to branch out away from these big products to see other stuff slowly but surely, I feel like kind of. But I think we all, like those of us who love Star Wars or something, Batman, you're so curious, you got to watch it. Like, even though they've let you down 1,000 times, you go back. Like, you've got to see, are they going to give me what I want this time out
Right.
of it? So I think people will always go back to it. Some have turned it off indefinitely,
Right.
but most will at least give it a chance, and then they may be disappointed all over again, or maybe they're excited. But I think what you're saying though with those other shows, like say Natalie and I went to see the last movie we reviewed was The Lost City, just a comedy. And we
Right.
had so much fun watching that movie, and of course, it's not tied to any big, property. It was
No, it's
just
like
yeah,
just a comedy.
it was a comedy that they took the idea from gosh, people in our comments were saying it was like an 8 I think maybe a 1960s movie or something, but
Oh,
basically they just kinda took a general concept and made it new.
right.
And I mean, it's done okay at the theaters. I wish it would have done better. It feels like now people are trained to only see like really big movies at the theater. Um, but I would enjoy more stuff like that because you're right. It's like there's almost like this cast over this kind of shadow over these big properties now of all the frustration and disappointment and even negativity surrounding it at times. That it does just feel simpler to go to something that there's just not any of that fussing over at this
Right.
point.
Right. Just a good old fashioned comedy, which we used to have in droves, but those have disappeared as well. It's funny how that works.
Well, I mean, it is, and I think even, I mean, literally at the Oscars, there was an assault on comedy.
I was just gonna say Chris Rock had the black slapped off him by Will Smith, and I'm like, okay, comedians aren't gonna be funny anymore because I mean, it was so odd, and I saw your video on that, and you guys hit it because it was like people who followed her, people who were in the know. Apparently, she had talked about she had the aphasia, or is that what it
Mhm.
is? The
Yes, yeah.
yes, the condition that's causing her to lose her hair. That she'd come out and she I'm not listening to Jada. I don't know
Yeah.
what Jada's saying. You know what I'm saying? I don't wish her well. I don't listen to her podcast. I'm sorry. Um, but yeah, when that happened, I was like, Jada's had short hair since I mean, that's been her look for years.
For
And
years.
so now maybe perhaps we have an insight as to why, but as fans, as just people, we were conditioned that she liked to wear her hair short.
Yes,
That was it.
absolutely.
And so when that happened, that was it. I mean, I'm not going to get into the whys and the whats and all that stuff, but Hollywood sort of gasped. I
Mhm.
think the inaction of the Academy, the stuff that night, what happened, and then what happened in the hours afterwards. I think Bill Maher pretty much summed it up. It just he couldn't figure out what the hell is going on in Hollywood. Hollywood's total identity crisis. They're just all over the place. And you look at some of the policies and
Mhm.
things that they're supporting. Of course, yeah, you can't be women's rights and then of course go out there and clap and cheer for Leah Thomas. It's
Mhm.
incongruent. You know what I mean?
It is, yeah.
But that there are there are ways I think that we can have those discussions through our entertainment, through things like this, but our entertainment primarily because you and I are here for the entertainment. We're kind of digesting it and putting it out in our own language. But I think there are ways that we can better communicate those sorts of the humanity that it appears we've lost, the need for connection, the need for yeah, I may not like the way you vote, but you know what? I kind of just need somebody. So I'm
Yes,
kind of just, let's go watch a movie that's not about that. And it's hard to find that anymore, you know?
it is, and I think I mean, I'm pretty sure it's like things that people who take time to make a good story and craft something good that doesn't have politics in it, like, I think it will do pretty well. Like, that's just kinda where we are today.
Hmm.
I know I saw and again, like you said, you kinda use things are just kind of a passing moment in time with the politics they put in. And it's not like it stopped my how I felt about the movie or changed how I felt about the movie, but it was literally jarring in the Batman movie. I'll
Yes.
use that word jarring. It had not done anything the whole movie, and then Catwoman makes the line about your white privilege, and it just felt
Hmm.
like you got slapped with, like, today's politics in the face, like, out of nowhere, and it removed me from Gotham City and put me back into society, and then I had to get back into Gotham City. Like,
Right.
that's what it did.
The
Um,
suspension of disbelief, it's hard sometimes because sometimes
yeah,
they're trying to wedge something in where otherwise it feels out of place, and I'm right there with you. I was unaware of that until it happened in the movie.
yes,
And then, of course, I think I saw it Thursday or something like it was early on and no one had seen it. And so I I don't know. I was totally I had no pretext. And to your point, that's exactly what it is. It is a what is it? The suspension of disbelief. And you're supposed to have this, like you said, you're in Gotham and those kinds of things. And then when they do something that's so 2022, what do you do with that in the next sequence where you're supposed to believe that rubber mask is stopping a shotgun bullet? You know what I mean?
yes,
It
yes, yeah,
You're not doing your job as entertainers. And
yeah.
they're making it unnecessarily hard on themselves.
Mm.
Trying to just flip someone's skin color for a character or their gender or whatever it is, ethnicity and those kinds of things. And it's a new way of telling the story. You're absolutely right. But we can have the discussion as to whether we can have a Guatemalan Superman or a Korean Superman or something. We can do that because I mean the what if, you know what I mean? We can have that discussion and those discussions are valid as well. But I mean, everything is the first. Everything is we have the first Korean Aquaman, just give me don't care. Just give me
Yeah.
Aquaman. If those things come along, fine. If it doesn't interfere with what's going on, fine. My point is that there is a group, much like ourselves, but on the opposite side of the spectrum, who rove around and they have very basic arguments like, well, if you don't like it, quit watching it.
Yes, yeah.
How do you and Natalie respond to things like that when they're telling you, and trust me, I understand as a Star Wars fan. So when you don't like Boba Fett, don't watch it. How what do you do with, now that we've sort of come to the now, when you move forward, how do you approach that, you and
Well, to
Natalie?
me with that, like, I just kind of ignore it. It's like, well, we're gonna watch it. We said we're gonna review every episode, so I've gotta watch it. Like, it's a part of this channel at this point. So I just kind of ignore that. I mean, or we may, bring it up at a weekly roundup being silly about it because it
Right.
is, it just, and it is. I mean, if now in that case we had like Boba Fett, we had said we were going to watch it all, so we were just going to watch it all. Plus, I wanted to see if it got better. But there are some things that I think people will just stop watching. I've stopped
Yeah.
watching. I literally stopped watching with like 2 episodes to go of Falcon and the Winter Soldier because I was so bored. I was so bored with that show.
We I think we talked about that. Like WandaVision through it was bad. Like going
Yeah.
from WandaVision to Falcon. That speaking of jarring, that was jarring as all hell. That was like, what is this? After everything they did in WandaVision, yeah, it was absolutely strange.
It
Do
was.
you do you have hopes for what are your ultimately, and I understand because sometimes I have a hard time articulating things like this. What if someone gave you just a blank check and there were things that what are the things that you have identified in Star Wars? We'll use Star Wars for example. What are the things that you've identified that you think that they could change to make better? Just a handful, do you have any idea? I know because I know every Star Wars fan has their opinion. What do you
Yeah.
think that you would do with Lucasfilm if they gave you the keys?
Well, one, it would be like, let's go back to George Lucas level of politics. That's the only level of politics that's going to be allowed in Star Wars.
Sort of
Like,
grandioso, big
yes,
thematic type things. Okay, right.
yes, big themes, going against, but even then, just would depend on the era. But yeah, those themes going against tyrannical governments, things like that. Uh, I would go back again. So get politics out And by politics, I also mean like the social justice narrative. I would love for them to have an awesome female Jedi, and I feel like I at least have that in Ahsoka. You know,
Mhm.
I want that. I don't care if there's an awesome black Jedi or whatever there is. That's great. But don't that doesn't need to be the first thing on the checklist when you're creating a story.
Right.
Let's really go back to creating good stories. And you know, I think what's sad is I think there's just so few people I feel like in Hollywood that really understand what a George Lucas hit at. Because there is spirituality in it. There is this basic human understanding. And Hollywood's become so polarized to only understand like one thing, like one way of thinking. I
Mhm.
think it is difficult. But yeah, I would say I really did enjoy. Now, is it a perfect show? No. I really did enjoy Mandalorian season 1 and 2. And I think
Mhm.
uh, I said this in our review of the second episode that Mando was in Boba Fett that had Grogu and Luke.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I can't remember exactly what I tweeted out, but I was like, that was Star Wars, spirituality, family,
Mhm.
like all these themes that connect, that resonate with people on a very deep and personal level, no matter how you believe politically.
Mhm.
That's what made Star Wars great. And I would want people that were going to focus on getting back to the heart of Star Wars. Like those type of themes running through Star Wars and just creating good characters like Han, Luke, and Leia.
Right.
You know, good characters, thought out stories. And you know, I enjoy the book. I mean, The Mandalorian,
Mhm.
but the Book of Boba Fett, they just didn't have a story. I didn't understand why we got what we got. Like that was not a well constructed, thought out, fleshed out story. Like that could have been maybe a 2 hour special.
You're absolutely right. I think that the choppiness of how Lucasfilm is doing their shows, one's 30 minutes, the other
Yeah.
one's an hour. Is it an hour show? I mean, stay in a lane. What are we doing here? I mean, if I'm expecting 30 minutes and I get 32, cool. But if I'm expecting an hour and I get 39, I don't know. Yes, you need to tell your story,
Yes.
but you are also writing to TV, and you're
Mhm.
not creating a 6-hour movie that you're just chopping up inconveniently, that 6 different directors are directing. Because
Yes.
there are those moments that when you're watching it on binge that you're like, "Okay, there's a new director." It just really like boom, but it's not any less Star Wars, it's just a different vision of Star Wars. You see it through Mandalorian, and I think that's
Mhm.
also part of what makes it special is, yes, it's being written a certain way and with a certain tone, but there's some input from the directors, but the directors are there to kind of just push that vision of that episode.
Yes.
And now certain voices have become more creatively involved in those sorts of things. But I do think it gets back primarily with me anyways, and this was a lot of the reason why there is a terminology that naysayers like to use that's called the Fandom Menace. I have no idea what that is, but the idea behind it, I remember watching it start to break down around the Mandalorian. Like this was start okay, so this could
Mhm.
be maybe something that we could kind of get into. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
there was the kind of division in within that nope, nope, nope versus hey, wait, what is that? Let's
Mhm.
give it a chance. And I think that as far as fandom goes, and I mean that lowercase f, I think that there is a time and a place for those sorts of things, and I think it's very easy for people to now, much like we do in our private lives or in real life, where they oh, you're just one of them.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever felt that. I mean, I've had wafts of that or whatever, but I don't. Have you and Natalie ever suffered from Phantom Menace, someone labeling you as such, or any other sort of labels, but I think you understand the connotation.
I do
You know what I
understand what
mean?
you're saying. We've been called that a couple times, which is pretty comedic when you really watch our channel. But like say, and we didn't get near as bad as like say our friends at Echo Base Network. But like after the second episode of Boba Fett, I was just genuinely, I was like, that was horrible. Like I was
Yeah.
just being, because that is something, and someone actually complimented Natalie and I, and it really meant a lot to me. He was like, you two are some of the most genuine people on YouTube. Like we can tell like your opinions on the movie are genuine. And because a lot of people, you can tell when they're scared or holding back from just letting go of their thoughts because people get so upset. But let's just say I didn't really hold back on that episode 2 of the Book of Boba Fett. And man, some of those people were not happy. And of course, you're not a Star Wars fan. You're not a true Star Wars fan.
Right.
That's their
And
favorite. Um,
yeah, that's the creme de la creme. You must not be a fill in the blank fan. Oh, okay.
Yes. And so they got kind of mad about that, but it's just like, well, what do you want me to do? Do you want me just
Right.
to sit here and lie? Like I have no problem, as they saw with the two with the okay, I didn't think the finale was great. It was pretty lackluster for me, but the two before that with
Mhm.
Mando, I thought were
Mhm.
excellent. I really just think we should have just got those two episodes.
Right.
Like just a interlude into season 3 of Mandalorian. Um I thought those were excellent, and I'm happy to say, I mean, you can go back and watch the excitement of me talking about it. Like you see
Mhm.
it, but it's like I'm not one of these blind fans that I feel I have to like everything because it has Star Wars on it. Like I'm going to be honest. Some things I like, some things I'm not going to like as they do more stuff.
Do you feel that how did do you feel you is that more freeing to be able to be that way?
Yes, I would say, and back to kind of when our channel really began to change, I was so intimidated to express my feelings about Gina Carano that day. So that was the most intimidated I've ever been putting out a video. And it was literally like it was the first time, it was like after that, it became increasingly more easy to just be who
Mhm.
I am. Because I
Mhm.
think that's half the battle on YouTube is learning to again, sometimes you want to really be careful how you articulate something if it's a sensitive subject or could be viewed as a sensitive subject. But for the most part, you just want to be yourself. And when it comes to things like Star Wars, I mean, come on. At the end of the day, that doesn't impact my life. It doesn't impact your life. It's entertainment. It is very freeing to just let loose. Either way, whether you really loved it and you're geeking out over it, or you thought it was like really bad in the case of some of those
Yeah.
episodes.
Have you ever gone back? Have you looked at that and said, "Oh, that was too harsh," or upon review, maybe it was, have you ever done that? Months removed or even years removed of some movies?
The only way I've ever gone is I was too easy on it. Like I was too gentle because that's
In
usually
fact,
how it
light
is.
that down.
Yeah,
Throw
like
that thing away now.
I thought that movie deserved one hoot. Like it was that bad. I gave it 3. What was I thinking? Like that would be the most.
Okay.
It's more I'm usually holding back if anything on being negative, but more and more I'm really not. It is what it is. If
Right.
anything, I just because at the end of the day too, and our audience knows this again, I said it's entertainment. Like there's people that watch almost every video that absolutely love Dune, and I'm happy for them. They paid their
Mhm.
money. They sat there for 3 hours. I'm glad they liked it. I just wasn't one of them.
Right.
And we
Right.
can still be friends, you know?
Mhm.
It's not a big deal. But yeah, for the most part, usually when I'm recording something, I will feel more intense, like in the moment, like, ooh, maybe I shouldn't have said that. And then
Mhm.
when I go back and rewatch it, I'm like, ah, it's fine. It's not a big
Almost,
deal.
yeah, almost always.
Yeah.
When I'm gaming with my friends, we sort of almost forget we're being filmed.
Yeah.
And so, like, kind of the military talk, we're playing Halo or Call of Duty or something. And so some of the military talk will come out and I'm rewatching it. My wife's like, from the other room, like, what the hell is going on? Look, I'm not responsible for what comes out of my mouth when we're gaming, but I'm curious, when you sit, because you guys you do the and this was, getting to the present, and then of course looking towards the future. You guys have, as far as production value, the presentation, of course, when you get to um just overall how you present yourself. You've created a brand, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And when you have discussions like this, or you go on someone else's podcast or someone else's, live YouTube videos or things like that, I've not with you in particular, you guys in particular, but what I've noticed is the sort of the transcending of their personalities
Mm.
from show to show to show, because it's not an act. It's a persona. I'm
Yes.
putting on my 97 Bravo hat, and
Yeah.
and so there's an aspect of shielding that someone
Mhm.
like myself, who's not, doesn't necessarily go by their first name, but not that it's a secret, but it's just one of those things that we've chosen to sort of, that's we're this personality. Do you guys ever get concerned being as forthright with your names and your life stuff and all that? Do you ever get concerned that, because there's crazy stuff out there, and this is not a guy asking a female, hey, do you feel okay? No, but people are weird, and
Yes.
I'm seeing all these sort of puzzles together. Neither you or your sister are ugly in any fashion. You like Star Wars. You have very strong political opinions, and people are batshit crazy.
Yeah.
So you know what I'm saying? I'm asking, do you or other female uh, creators, do you guys, are there concerns in today's world, especially with how, people just show up one day sometimes? What, as a YouTuber, is there a concern among female creators or just creators in general?
Do you know, I've had that thought actually. So, I mean, the thought definitely goes in your mind of like a terrible what if situation. For the most part, I don't usually worry about it or think about it that much. But it definitely has crossed my mind because I know people that, I mean, gosh, even I brought up Drunk 3PO. He's received like emails that are, like have death threats in them. I
Hmm.
mean, it's just like people are crazy. And thank God we've not gotten received anything that crazy. Like the worst we get is maybe they disagree with us on, they call us like a some kind of political name or something like that. They go
Right.
political, or oftentimes if they don't agree with your movie opinion, you're kind of stupid. You know, that's kind of that's kind of where the only places it's gone, and I can live with that.
Well, yeah,
um,
I don't mean to. It's not like you guys, in my view, anyways, are saying anything, doing anything
yes, no, I get
that
what you're
is
saying.
on fire. It's just that in
People are
the
that
world
crazy.
that we live in, right? That even some of the things that we've talked about tonight, I could very easily see, someone forming an opinion and just whoop,
Yeah,
putting you in a box or me in a box or anything. It's people in chat in a box because of what they're talking about, all kinds of stuff. So it's a shame in the sense that we've lost our ability to have the conversations. And I think
it
that
is.
what's becoming more and more important is that, at least for me anyways, is as we enjoy our entertainment on YouTube, and our podcasters, and the people who stream on Twitch and those kinds of things, I think it's important to remember, at least this is what I'm trying to keep at the front of my mind, are the changes that people go through the course of their life. Like, what could possibly be going on with this person that they are acting this out of sorts? Or sometimes it is just a personality. um but there are those times where you kind of go, that wasn't me, I'm sorry. Not necessarily a comment, because those things, because you're editing and you're sort of, you have the production value, kind of putting everything together and those sorts of things. So there's that time to sort of edit in that sense. But on Twitter, on a live stream, those sorts of, do you find it, which would you prefer if you had to stop one? Would you prefer to do live stuff, or would you prefer to do like it just not manufactured but produced material?
Okay, so that will be kind of a, let me explain it this way. The live streams, what we enjoy about them is discussing with the chat. You know, I see Josh was here, as Andrew, the science fictionary. We genuinely enjoy, and honestly, probably some of my favorite live streams are just our chill streams where it's just like, come, let's talk, let's chat, and the because that's what we enjoy, discussing with the chat and really interacting with them. And
Mm-hmm.
we enjoy when we have, you know, guests on too. But the chat is what makes live special. And so that's what I love about live streams. But live streams are so much more mentally and physically draining than a video you make. So if I had to do just
Okay.
one, I would do video just because it doesn't take as much from me.
Oh, I
Like,
see. Okay.
yeah, and then I would be sad to lose that constant, you know, the back and forth. We have a lot of fun with our chat, and we enjoy.
Right.
Again, that's what makes those special. But live streams are much more, and not near as much even when I'm a guest on someone's channel. But when you are running your live stream, like the chat's going, you're trying to get things pulled up, you're trying to think of what to say. Uh, they're very draining. As you're doing them. Like when by the time you're finished, like you're just kind of like you're just kind of done for
It-
mentally, I think I would say. So I would say videos just because I would be able to do more of them.
right.
But then I would really miss those fun interactions with the chat as well.
It is different energy. It is,
It
especially in
is.
this one here is a little different because in watching yours are designed. It's like, hi guys, we're here. Let's look at the chat. Let's, and
Yes.
yes, like yesterday it was a little different because there were more eyes watching chat, and then there were more people in chat who were interacting with the four of us who were talking type thing. And I was paying attention to it, but the funny thing was that we were gearing everything towards that. And in
Mhm.
my sort of, I typically, I'm getting a lot better with it. The chat happens, and it
Mhm.
happens so rarely for so long that I just got used to just going and
Yes.
sitting down with the person in front of us. Like I told you in private, the idea behind this is that we're sitting in the back corner table. It's dimly lit. We're hanging out. No one's around us. We got the restaurant to ourselves, or someone's way up front. That's it. We're just chit chatting. We're having a chat, and whatever happens, happens. And then we go do our things. It's like you go entertain that way. I'll go entertain this way. And when that sort of comes together, it's it is draining. I will, there is preparation that goes into it all day. I'm going, what time do I promote it at? And, there's all this,
Yes, yes.
and you're thinking, and oh shit, did I say 4 or 5? And there's that moment of like, yeah, it happens. It still happens. And just I was on Rose, I did Scarif Live 2 weekends in a row, and I swear both times I got on StreamYard and I was on my webcam microphone instead of this. And so it was just horrible, absolutely horrible. But there are things like that. And I think the fun aspect of the Red 5 is the sense that because everyone is rooting for you to succeed, and there's not a safety net necessarily, because you're out there, and if you want to put your foot in your mouth, you're more than welcome to do so. No one's going to come to your aid necessarily, if you make an ass of yourself. But at the same time, when you're having fun and you're promoting your idea of your creative output, and you're not hurting nobody else, and you're not trying to drop bombs and that kind of, you're just doing your thing, right, wrong, or indifferent. I think that you just gravitate towards similar voices. And I think that what I appreciated about listening to you guys at the time as you were coming into, I think at that time you were into your YouTube videos. Yeah, 2020, but or 2021. when he came into Red 5, but it was it, it is refreshing seeing new voices who have a perspective that is faith-based, that isn't necessarily needing to put anything out there. It just is part of who you are. Just like in one of your videos, I think you said something about being, Welsh or something like that. We don't walk up to each other and say, "Hey, I'm German, Irish." We don't do that. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
it seems odd. But what I enjoyed about the voices and stuff about Red 5 and talking with everyone is the idea that the people who sort of engaged us as far as coming in, it it was because there was a genuineness. Not that they agreed,
Mm-hmm.
but they could tell that there was a genuineness in how your sister, how everyone is sort of presenting their stuff. And you can't really take that away. So I may disagree with you on things, everyone does, but
Mm-hmm.
we know that at the end of the day, I think because there's no infighting within Red 5, ultimately what it proves is the fact that we're here for us, and that's the primary that's the primary focus, and no one disagrees with that. There isn't a top-down sort of direction,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, there's an uplifting energy and a vibe and a sort of, oh hey, I do have an hour, let me stop by. And then they stop by, hey, what's going on? And that kind of thing. And so there's a supportiveness that goes into it. And do you see more of that happening with, I'm going to go out on a limb because I know what I look like in the mirror in the morning with all this gray. I'm going to go out on a limb and say we're not close in age. Would I be close in saying that you're not in your 40s? I'm just
Yeah,
gonna
I'm not in my
okay.
40s.
All right. From different generational aspects, when you look up at the sequel trilogy, it is different than the prequel trilogy, which is
Mhm.
then different from the OT. When in knowing that distinction and being able to make that distinction, because I've heard you guys make that distinction, uh, what do you as we sort of wrap everything up, as we move forward, what do you think, if you had advice for anybody who was just starting out, or they've had some ideas, maybe they've even cut some shows, whatever have you, if you had to give any advice to anybody, knowing what you know now, what do you think you would be able to pass on or would want to pass on?
Well, I mean, I could definitely pass on little tidbits of things you could do to try to help in the algorithm, stuff like that. But the main thing, besides like true little details of YouTube, the main thing I would tell people that are just starting is like, don't be afraid to mess up. Just keep doing it. Like, watch the people you enjoy, take little things from, kind of figure out what you want to be, and just
Hmm.
kind of keep doing it. Because I feel like, as we said at the beginning, it's like with YouTube, you just keep figuring out like who you are on YouTube, honestly. Like, I don't know. I mean, maybe Natalie and I would be exactly the same for the next however long. But I feel like regardless, and at the end of the day, we will really kind of be the same two people.
Hmm.
Just I feel like you learn to be more and more comfortable, like more and more who you are,
Right.
truly. And so I just would say to people in the beginning to just know, yes, like you will get a lot better. You will look back on old videos and be like, man, what were we thinking? But
Yeah.
that's how everyone starts. Like,
Yeah.
everyone looks back, and that's a good thing because that means you grew, like you evolved,
Exactly.
you changed. So I would just say don't be discouraged in the beginning, and uh, do what makes you happy to get on and record or talk about. Like, that truly is kind of my thing at this point. Even already, like I don't want to just talk about nonsense. Like, I want to talk about things that I genuinely care to talk about. And I would recommend that to people as well.
I
Do
think
what
that
makes you happy.
Oh heck yeah. And I think that one of the things that is probably not trying to fit in someone else's box. When
Yes.
you look and you say, well, I like watching these people, I'm going to do that. I think that often leads
Yes.
to heartbreak. If you're
Absolutely.
so yeah, no, that wise words from Michelle. It's absolutely no, it is the way you're absolutely 100% correct, and it needs to be said more often. It there are a lot of people that are still that always will and come into podcasting late in life and hey, look,
Mhm.
I've done that for years, and all these things. Then you also have the podcasters who are still in college and those kinds of things, and
Mhm.
there's a different perspective on all of this. And I think that as the podcasting, as the YouTube videos, the content creating in general becomes easier to do on our phones or any number of things, do you think that there's a saturation point, or do you think that we become the entertainment?
I think we've already become like begin to become the entertainment for a lot of people. I mean, my gosh, one of the biggest examples I think I can give, and usually I don't even really watch hardly any of it, if ever, because I'm usually out doing stuff on Fridays. But my Lord, Nerdrotics Friday Night Tights. I mean, the chat will have over 11,000 people. Like it's just like it's
Oh wow.
become. I mean, that's entertainment. That's 11,000 people watching live. Um, but
Wow.
yeah, I think YouTube, and maybe I mean maybe there is a saturation point. I don't know. I think every time like new YouTube channels start, other ones just kind of fall off. There almost is like a point. I don't know. I mean, it does
like
keep growing, but
like a
there's also
natural attrition, it sort of
yeah,
balances itself.
it kind of
you know
balances. So there's always room for people, I would say. And again, I think more and more people are turning to YouTube or podcast to get entertainment
hmm
um, instead of watching TV or listening to the radio. So I think there we are becoming the entertainment, and yeah, I think that's a good way of saying it. Actually, I can't
I,
add
I
to that.
I think in some cases we're actually safer in some. Not my
Yes.
channel. My channel should come with a warning. But as far as your guys' channel, I think that it is, there with the stuff that's out there. I think that quite obviously, and I'm not alone on this. With 5,000 subscribers and those kinds of things, you're striking a nerve, because I think that there's a craving for that. There's a craving for not only the genuineness, but I do think that some of the more common sense opinions that are typically shot down, or personalities are shot at, come from that sense of they feel inadequate with not being able to say necessarily the things that someone like yourself or me or Natalie would say, because we have the platform. But in the same sense, we're saying something that they don't necessarily agree with. And how do we handle that? And a lot of the conversations that I've had behind the scenes start and end with, look, I was misunderstood, or this is what I meant to say.
Mm.
Because we get in a Twitter world,
Yeah.
and as well as I do, our digital language is not, it's not the best way to convey a message. And so
Gosh, no.
it what's really cool about everybody sort of either wanting to watch stuff like this, or wanting to participate in, or even wanting to create it, is the sense that we've taken power away from Hollywood,
Yeah.
and v- we are allowing our voices, probably for the first time in history, to sort of collectively let Hollywood know in real time, don't like it, don't want it, do something different. And
Well,
I
absolutely. And do you know what's even interesting? You can almost even prove that. If you go to some of these channels, they will get celebrities on their channel, like these review channels. And
mhm,
the videos with the celebrities will do less views than their other videos. Because it's like on YouTube, it's like people aren't here for celebrities. They're not here
yeah,
for Hollywood. They're here for genuine, real people. Like
mhm.
that's what they're looking for on YouTube. And that's what I think succeeds for the most part.
And I think that that sort of segues into just everything we've been talking about, and I think that sort of shines on how you guys have gone from, you know, where you're at, uh, filming. It looked like a hallway almost. The have that first podcast, just, you know, putting it to video, or whatever, all the way up to, you know, producing the stuff and having the theme song and the, you know, the identity and the brand and that sort of thing. That's icon. You know, it's a staple. There are things that you've come to expect, and me personally, I think we all need more of that. And I think that, you know, obviously the red five flag and those sorts of things, it's sort of the personalities that gravitate towards it. It sort of rings true in that sense that there's a lot of genuineness across the board. And I think that's why people are gravitating towards red five, or our voices like you and your sister that can push that out, and it comes across the screen, and there's no pretext, there's no any of that. There's, you know, even if you guys are reading something, it's not, you know, you could tell in the eyes sort of thing. But, well, I enjoyed meeting you screen to screen for the very first time. I'm just sorry your sister couldn't make it.
Yes. Yes, I know. Yeah, we've communicated on Twitter for a while, so
Yes.
it's nice to meet you, as you said, face to face on screen. Yeah, no, I've really enjoyed this. No, it's been a very nice, relaxing conversation. I've enjoyed it. Like you did such a good description of what you want when you said, like, in the back of a restaurant, no one else is there. Like, that's the best, like, conversations you have.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I like that.
You're at Denny's for how long? It was like
Yeah.
6 hours, you know. So we're talking about what? That kind of is the idea behind it. It's just, there's so much, and there's nothing wrong with it. I'm in the mood sometimes for production value and this and that, but some of the channels, like, I'm not, I'll dip in after a long break,
Yeah.
and it's like, what just happened? It Because everything, and even on Twitch is very bad about it, because it's sort of, you get to a level, then there's this expectation of all the bells and whistles that are going on while you're doing your thing.
Yeah.
And I enjoy this. I
Yeah.
wish I had minions to watch the chat and to do all that cool stuff, and all of it, and show me which buttons to push and all that stuff. But this is the aspect that I enjoy, and I think that everybody enjoys, kind of getting to the person behind, the content. I think that's probably one of the nicest, or one of the nicest compliments you can pay somebody is watching something like, well, not necessarily my show, but when you hear someone talk about how they came into your living room. You know, it's like, oh, I remember, you know, Force of Light Entertainment and this, that, and the other thing, but they may not know, they may have come in mid story. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So I think I
Yes.
like the idea of doing things like this, and I hope that we can schedule a time in the future where you and Natalie can both be on, and we can chat about more current stuff,
Yeah,
more
that'd be
current
fun
topics, to
too.
get into to something like that. So yeah, well, I enjoyed having you. I'm glad that
Yes.
you could make it and that everything worked out.
Well, thank you for having me again. I've really enjoyed it.
Did you, why don't, before we go ahead and take off, why don't you tell the nice folks who are still hanging out where they can find you and your sister and all the great and wonderful things that you guys create?
Yeah, you can find us if you like talking entertainment, movie reviews, reaction videos to trailers, movies. Again, our next reaction movie, first time watching, is Top Gun. Yeah, then check us out at Force of Light Entertainment on YouTube. Also, Force of Light Entertainment on Instagram and Twitter. And I believe Natalie's, like, I don't know. You have to go to our channel. She'll tell you at the end of every video where you can find her.
Perfect.
But yeah, just check out Force of Light. We'll start there. You can find
Outstanding.
her attached to that.
Do you guys have a bio link or something? Just the YouTube?
Yeah, just the YouTube, and
Okay.
then of course at the Red 5. They're not doing the red5.com anymore, right? It's something else.
Um, I'm not sure, but bio.link forward
Yes,
slash
the
red five.
bio.link. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they moved to that.
That, and then if you go to Force of Light Entertainment on Twitter or Instagram, there's links to our YouTube channel, and from there. So you can find us any of
Perfect.
those places.
Outstanding. And then, just so everyone else is aware, I will go through the YouTube afterwards, and so I will update it with all the nice, cool little, your links and stuff to make it easy for them to just click on.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, it'll wait till the morning, unfortunately, because I'm fading fast. I did 2 streams yesterday, and then talking with you now, and then I've been up since 3. So it's been one of those things that if I have one more Red Bull, I'm gonna hurt somebody, and I don't want to do that. So it's just one of those days. I want to thank everybody in chat. You guys are awesome. Okay, I apologize for our lack of interaction, but I think you will agree that this was probably one of the coolest conversations I've had so far. It's just mellow and those sorts of things. So I thank you for that. Thank you for coming on again. You go ahead and have a good night, and I will talk to you guys later. You guys be cool. Oh my goodness.